I think what my superpower is really seeing people and
Mhm.
understanding what their strengths are and their gifts, even if they don't see it, and helping them find ways to leverage those gifts.
Hello, and welcome to CEO Authors, the show where leaders share their stories, strategies, and ideas that drive success. I'm your host, Carl Taft, and today I'm excited. All right. So, Rachel, thanks for joining us. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So, I wanted to begin with, from the time that maybe you left corporate America, you're quite a jet setter. You lived all over the world, right? I think you quit your job, sold your home. Could maybe tell our audience a little bit about that?
Sure. So in 2014, I was a director for a global Fortune 500. I was managing a team uh, of content folks and producers all over the world. I think we spanned 17 time zones, and I was very, very, very severely burned out. Even though I didn't have the language for it at the time, I really didn't know what was happening. But I was pretty much non-functional. And I ended up quitting my job, selling my home, and moving to rural Peru to start my recovery journey. And that was the start of what I call a sabbatical that lasted about 5 years. I ended up living in Ecuador and buying a little home in the Andes, and then moving for safety and security reasons, unfortunately, to Portugal, which was really beautiful. Um, Coming back to the States, moving to Switzerland, moving back, all of that was actually, but that was sort of the first time that I left corporate. And then I did it again a few years later.
Oh, tell me more about that. So you leave in basically 2014. When did you, I guess, come back from Switzerland to the US? How long was this, rock star tour of yours?
So it was about 5 years, more or less. I mean, there were a
Okay.
few little things in between, but I came back from Switzerland in 2019.
Okay. Late 2019 or early 2019?
Mid.
Okay.
I came
Okay.
back in July.
So about 6 months, 8 months pre-COVID, if you will.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
was it was interesting because when I came back, I had decided I had worked in the tech world for a really long time. And when I came back, I decided I wanted to do something completely different and just get into a very, very different kind of work than I had been in. And I ended up getting a returnship at a construction company working in mechanical construction. And it was completely fascinating. And the returnship was supposed to finish in March of 2020.
Oh.
And I loved the company and was talking to them about potentially finding a role with them after the returnship program.
Mhm.
And then suddenly there was no more opportunity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is fast. I love, professionals, entrepreneurs that have to go through this like pivot journey and find their way. So like, tell me more. So
Oh,
you're vested in construction, right? And then, okay, COVID happens. Then what?
so many pivots, many, many,
Yeah.
many pivots.
Yeah.
So I continued looking. I was actually looking for work in operations, which is a little bit different than what my resume said, so it made it a little bit harder. Um, I ended up getting a job back in the tech industry, back doing something that I had done literally at the very beginning of my career, decades before, which was in content strategy. And I did that for a little while for a company that had been fully remote anyway.
Okay.
And then I had a senior vice president come in and join the team who was looking for some new and interesting roles to fill. And I spoke with her and I said, I'm really interested in what you're doing. And I've
Mm.
got a background that goes way beyond content strategy. Can we talk about some of these other roles? I was hiring for something called design operations, which I had never heard of, but I was working on a design team and I had an operations background. And I said, let's figure this out. And she was able to give me the opportunity. I found a person to backfill my role, and I went into this new role and started learning as I was going and loved it. It was a lot of fun for a lot of reasons. Unfortunately, um, I was caught up in a major round of layoffs that happened a couple of years later. So, more pivoting, and basically did that one more time before I ended up starting my own business.
Got it. So help me with the mindset, help our listeners with the mindset. I was an entrepreneur for decades as well. And I chased one shiny object after another. Um, how do you make that switch from, corporate time off, maybe dabbling in corporate, I guess during and after COVID? How do you get into coaching, authorship, and what you're doing now?
Sure. So coaching is actually something I had done for a very long time. There was a volunteer program that I did way back in college that was essentially coaching. My first job out of college was a career advisor role where I did a lot of coaching, even though I didn't know the term at the time. And I had done it all the way through my career. There had been times before when I had wanted to get formal coach training, and it just turned out it was never the right time.
Okay.
So when this layoff happened, I still needed to work. I ended up getting another contract role for about a year, but I took my severance package and I got formal training in coaching and I got my
Love it.
certification. And that's when I started my business. And the mindset was really, I want to be more in control. I had been in so many layoffs during my entire corporate career, probably 7, 8, maybe more, just
Wow.
because I started out in tech in the 90s. So it's just part of
Right.
the way things go.
Right.
I have a little poster that sits above my desk. I'm looking at it now. Things that I'm saying yes to. I made an infographic out of it. Things that I was saying yes to by leaving corporate and starting my own business. And a lot of it had to do with being my own boss and being a great boss and giving myself permission to do things the way that I wanted to and the way that I'm wired, because I've always known I was wired a little bit differently and
Yeah.
never quite fit into the corporate world. I kind of faked it all the way through, and faked it not in terms of claiming things that weren't mine, but masking and playing a role, putting on a persona that didn't feel authentic to me and was just what I had seen and what I thought leaders were supposed to do and were supposed to look like. So starting my own business was really exciting. It was terrifying, but it was also, this is a chance to do things the way I know they can be done and the way that feels true to me. And I also love coaching. And so it's hugely fulfilling. I have never been as fulfilled as I am when I am serving clients and seeing them achieve great things.
Love it. Yeah, just talking to you, I get the teacher vibe, if you will, the coach vibe, and yeah, I would hazard to say that that's your superpower, and maybe what the universe needs to see more of.
I think what my superpower is really
Hmm.
seeing people and
Hmm.
understanding what their strengths are and their gifts, even if they don't see it, and helping them find ways to leverage those gifts. So it's just something I really, really enjoy doing. A lot of the people I work with, most of the people I work with are also wired a little differently. And a lot of them grew up with messages that they were too sensitive or not enough or needed to grow a thicker skin or
Hmm.
were just doing things wrong or were weird or all kinds of negative things.
Yeah.
And yet most of them are brilliant. I mean, I work with really super smart people
Hmm.
and helping them recognize strengths and embrace strengths in themselves that they had never really realized were there or had never seen as strengths. They thought everyone could do these things is what I love about my work, is one of the things I love about it.
Do you think it's that they haven't realized it, or are they masking it, or is it a combination? Or maybe you could talk to that a little bit. Like,
I don't think it's necessarily a question of masking the gifts. I think
hmm,
it's a question of our world rewards certain kinds of behaviors and
sure,
certain kinds of um, it rewards extroverts and it rewards people who
right,
speak up and it rewards people who fit into certain patterns of behaviors.
hmm,
And a lot of my clients don't. And though they are really good at certain kinds of things,
hmm,
we are naturally programmed to focus on the negative rather than the positive. So also they tend to be fairly humble or modest. They don't have personal agendas necessarily, and so they don't look for ways to raise themselves up. And what that means is that they tend to think that everyone can do the things that they do really well. They just don't see it as a gift that they have that not everyone else has.
just sitting with that for a little bit. So I guess what are some of the maybe tools or perspective that one can maybe adopt to kind of help them through that process? I mean, and do they even want that? I mean, if they're humble, right? Or what's the conflict internally, right? Like, I consider myself to be humble. I consider myself to be below the radar. I don't like to speak up. People say that I'm too nice, and it shields people from harsh realities, and you need to be a certain way, right? But a lot of that is
Right.
just, I don't want to be a whack-a-mole and stick my head out, right?
Right.
And
Right.
maybe you could talk to that a little bit. Like,
So I think what comes up for a lot of my clients is they know they're capable, they know they're competent, they know they have good ideas.
yeah,
They don't often want to speak up because they've been criticized or, penalized for speaking up in the past. They also often don't want to speak up just to be another voice. So if they're sitting in a meeting and three people say the same thing, they don't feel the need to just speak up just to hear their own voice.
yep.
That said, almost uniformly, they know that they have more to contribute. They know that they're capable of making a bigger impact, and they really want to give back to the world. They want to leave a legacy. They want to serve. They often have huge goals and big visions. They have to learn to get out of their own way to do that. So when you're humble and modest and don't speak up and aren't seen and aren't recognized, say in a standard corporate setting, the prompt to do something about it is, do you really want to make a stamp on the world? Do you really want to make an impact? Or are you happy to sit here and listen to other people telling you, their ideas, whether you agree that they can work or not? One of the gifts that a lot of my clients have is an ability to connect dots, for example. So strong intuition and we're downloading a lot of information, and we have an ability to put that information together in unique ways and often see several steps ahead when other people can't see those things. That can get us in trouble. And I've talked about this many times, and I've written about it, because some people think we're know-it-alls or that we are making stuff up because we can't always back up why we know these things. And yet a consistent struggle that I hear is being in a corporate environment when executives are making strategic decisions that my clients know are going to fail, and they can't give a data-backed reason why they're going to fail, but they just know it, and they're usually right. And so being able to leave that environment and do something for yourself that you can run the way you want to run and make strategic decisions the way will have an impact is one reason that people want to start doing this work.
If you're a leader, right? I work with a lot of main guys on Main Street,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you're a leader and you wanted to propagate or promote this type of corporate culture, what might be some steps you could take, to do so?
So when you say this type, you mean a more inclusive corporate
A more
culture?
inclusive, maybe it's more
Yeah.
systemic to promote that type of thought leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the most important things you can do are learning to get to know each one of your employees as an individual and not just as part of a team. So leaders have a lot on their plate, obviously, and sometimes they default to, oh, it's the team. Everybody, it's kind of a monolithic group of people who just need to get stuff done. They just need to carry out the vision, right? People don't operate that way. People need inspiration and motivation, and they want to be seen and they want to be heard. And the best way to generate loyalty and to get people motivated and inspired to do their work is to learn what motivates and inspires each person, and to get to know them a little bit, and to understand their communication preferences and their learning style and their goals. People, I worked with a CEO once who said, I don't understand it. I've got this great team and I have this vision, and I know exactly how everything needs to get done to achieve the vision, and they just won't listen to me. She was making a lot of assumptions, as she was a fairly new founder of a company.
Mhm.
And she was assuming a couple of things. One of them was that everybody just wanted to get on board because they believed in her vision. But not everybody could see her vision because she wasn't communicating it effectively. On top of that, she wasn't giving people the chance to do things the way that made sense for them. So when leaders can learn to communicate expected outcomes, expected results, and anything that needs to happen around that, so deadlines, obviously, and then let the employee figure out how to do that work in a way that makes sense for them, they will often see innovation and results that go even beyond what they were hoping for, rather than when they try to dictate how things are done, which really limits the ability of the employee to have any ownership, to learn, to do things in a different way, um, to offer ideas.
It's great. Yeah. I want to pivot to your book now.
Mhm.
Um, Congratulations! I think you recently won your fourth award. I'm gonna call it to that. You're a humble person, but for our listeners, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it's funny, I am a humble person, and yet I accept the award and the kudos on behalf of the book. It's like the
There
book
you
earned
go.
the award, I didn't, right?
There you go. Love it. It just came out in May, I believe you said, correct?
It did. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So, in writing that book, right, Perceptive, you share your thoughts, insight for leaders who feel and think differently. Is there a story or chapter that maybe resonates more strongly with you now, as you know, kind of reflect on it?
The whole book is very personal. It's interesting because it's not a memoir. It's very much a leadership book. It's also, some people call it a how-to book. It's not really that either. It's kind of it's a cross-genre book. All of it is special to me. I spoke with 16 different leaders. They all happened to be women because I was working with women clients at the time, and
Sure.
this was just my network. But 16 leaders from very, very different backgrounds and demographics. And I tell parts of their stories interwoven with parts of my story throughout the book to illustrate the concepts that I'm talking about. And I am honored that all of these leaders were willing to publicly share some of their challenges as well as their gifts.
Oh.
And the feedback that I hear over and over is, oh my God, I saw myself in that chapter, or I saw myself in that story, or that spoke to me. And I've heard a lot of people say, reading your book helps me feel seen. I feel seen and heard for the first time. And I think that comes from the whole book and all of the stories. So there isn't, I mean, there are definitely things that I remember from it, but there isn't one part that means more to me than another.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you know, you saying, "Oh my God, that's me," right? As somebody that's reading your book, now, I looked at your website, and you have something called the Grit Collaborative, correct?
Uh-huh.
What does GRIT stand for again?
So GRIT is an acronym for grace, resilience, intuition, and trust, which are the four pillars, the four cornerstones of this hybrid group coaching and mastermind program that I run.
Yeah. On your website, rercoaching.com, I believe. Did I get that right?
You did, yes.
Okay. So rercoaching.com. It says, "Do you feel like," right? And it was like, overthinking communication, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of saying no to somebody, a hard time with self-advocacy. And I was like, yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Yes, yes, yes. So just to clarify for, you know, any listener out here, you work with men, women,
All
any
genders.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think when you said that about your book, I just had to mention that because I feel so many leaders struggle or deal with that. I don't know if they struggle with it, but I certainly do at times. So
They do. And I started out working with leaders who were in corporate, but one of my loves is working with business people, business owners and self-employed folks, because often they're the ones who leave corporate or never go into corporate in the first place
Right.
because they know they want to do the things their own way. And I love working with these folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like there's almost another layer or level of maybe stress and accountability in some cases, right? The business owner that's trying to make payroll. It's different than just necessarily having a job per se, but
Exactly.
no. So, you know, energy management. I want to talk about that for a little bit, right? So you talk about burnout, right? And it happens. I mean, what would you say are the signals to look out for, whether you're an executive or a business owner, and how can they design their work to maybe avoid it?
Absolutely. This is a topic that I am very, very, very passionate about. I just gave a talk on this to a group of 3,000 professionals, and I'm still hearing feedback from the talk.
That's great.
There are a number of things to look out for. One of the hard things about burnout, though, is it can look different for each person. And it can even look different for the same person experiencing it more than once. But there are some common themes. So when you start feeling more tired than usual, when you feel exhausted and you lose interest in things that used to interest you, when you stop, one of the things I noticed was, well, in hindsight, I noticed I lost my sense of humor. Things that I used to laugh about were just no longer funny. I just didn't have the capacity for humor anymore. There are people who are typically very empathetic and very compassionate, and you can lose your ability to be empathetic and compassionate. That is one of the signs. Also, chronic pain or other health conditions that you don't typically experience.
Wow.
An inability to just get up in the morning, lack of
Right.
energy overall in general that isn't
Right.
just tiredness. So there are a lot of different things. And for neurodivergent folks, it can actually go deeper. It can be more severe. It can be more chronic. And it can include getting to the point where I was in 2014, which was pretty much almost non-functional. I was punching through because that's what I do and that's what I've always done.
Right. Okay.
But it was like trying to punch through brick walls. I mean, it was really hard to do the kinds of things that I had always done.
I think this is such an important point to bring up. I'm glad you did so. I mean, how is there anything that you can design your work and maybe personal life to alleviate or maybe avoid it ultimately?
Yes. And thank you for reiterating the question. So boundaries are so important and something that so many of us struggle with. A lot of the people I work with, they have trouble saying no to people. Honestly, this is a lot of people who take care of everyone and everything around them except themselves. So when something needs to be done, they do it. When someone needs help, they help them. And they can end up spending 12 or 14 hours working. They'll work several hours after the end of their workday because they spent most of the workday doing things for other people.
Right.
Or just not saying no and not putting boundaries around their time and their energy. A lot of what I work with people on is figuring out, first of all, how to say no in a way that doesn't make them feel terrible or that doesn't cause friction with other people. There are ways to negotiate often and ways to get better results than you might think just by saying no. Ways to clear your calendar, ways to not accept every meeting notice that comes your way. It's funny. I've had people say, gee, I didn't even realize I could decline a meeting invitation. Things that we don't think about when we are just programmed to go, and to do our best and to always put in 150%. And these are the most important things that we can do to prevent burnout as well. I'll add one thing to that. Making sure that you know what in your life brings you joy and including those things and doing it multiple times a day because we need to recharge. We can't always be going. It's, you can't pour from an empty cup or an empty vessel. If you don't keep refreshing, recharging, doing things for yourself, you cannot be there for the other people you support, whether it's your employees, your family, your friends. You need to take care of yourself. And one fantastic way to do that is by bringing in more joy. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be time consuming, little things. And this is something I talk with a lot of my clients about, just finding those little things and making sure you do.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm thinking about a family member, if you will, who quit alcohol. He's about 25 years in now. He's got his 25-year coin, and and I knew him from the start, and I couldn't understand why part of the the stress that maybe drove him to drink, right, was, and how they got around that was, well, one of the tools that was given to him was to basically take time for yourself for at least half a day a week. And to this day, he still does that. And I think for somebody like myself, I still can't make that connection. I understand that in principle, but I feel like it's a slow burn. It's not discrete, right? Where you just flip a switch and then you're, oh, I'm better, right? It's like a slower roll. And I think have to give yourself enough grace and time for that to build momentum and steam where there's actually some results.
I agree. And I love that you said, give yourself some grace, because that's one of the phrases that I use all the time with my clients. I really do believe we have to give ourselves more grace. I think it's really important. And if you can take half a day a week for yourself, I think
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to look like that. There are
Yes.
things that I talk about that are micro breaks or micro moments of joy is something that I got from another author I read. Um, just so I don't have it where I'm working right now, but I used to have an avocado tree right outside my office window. And there were all of these tiny little birds that loved that tree.
Mm.
I'm not a bird person in particular,
Okay.
but they were so tiny and they were all these different colors and they
Mm.
had all of these beautiful little different songs. And literally just turning my head for a few minutes and getting away from the computer and watching and listening to the birds was one of those micro breaks for me. Some people get up and dance or listen to a song or go out for a walk. I mean, that's something that I really strongly encourage because we end up just getting stuck in our seats for
Yeah.
too long
For
anyway.
sure. For sure.
But I have one client who keeps a little sketchbook on the corner of her desk and she just doodles, during the day and it helps her focus too. So she's not, it's channeling her energy into something, but it's also getting her brain out of whatever it was that, she had been focusing on for the last few hours.
Yeah.
All of those things make amazing breaks. And it could be playing with a pet or a child. It could be doing a quick run or some exercise. It could be all kinds of things. And just getting into the habit of doing that repeatedly and, several times throughout the day can be just as refreshing.
I love it. I love it because I think there's some mindset out there that says, no, I don't have 5 minutes. I don't have 10 minutes. I don't have whatever it is, right? To just
Right.
take that little bit of time. And ultimately, I feel you probably look at your phone and just rot your brain for at least that and then more in a day. So you have the time. You just need to make the time.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
need to choose your priorities. And
Yeah.
if your priority is mental and physical health, well, there are ways to do that that don't have to be burdensome, right?
Right. Yeah. How's the saying go? Perfection is the evil of all things better. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And just do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple more questions here. So I want to talk about, scaling your message. So if you could wave a wand and change one thing about how organizations view sensitivity, neurodiversity, what would it be?
So a lot of organizations think that that diversity and neurodiversity is something that they have to decide whether they're going to engage with or not.
Okay.
The fact is, it's here. It's in your organization, whether you choose to embrace it or not. And if you don't, you are going to lose valuable talent and valuable opportunity. It really doesn't take a ton of time or money or energy to create an inclusive culture and to make that sustainable. It's not, people are worried that it's going to cost all sorts of, money. It's not about that. It's about making small changes that make the workplace an enjoyable, inclusive space for everyone there. And another part of it, I'm not being very articulate about this at the moment, but another part of it is changes that you make for one population tend to benefit other populations. And the kinds of things that make workplaces more inclusive for example, neurodivergent folks, make them more inclusive for everyone. So it's not that you're catering to a specific group, it's that you are leveraging talent and passion and intelligence and all kinds of things that will lead to your company being more productive and your employees being more engaged when you let everyone bring themselves to their work and don't force them to spend time battling the things that don't work with the way they're wired.
Well said. Well said. You've had quite a journey. I think it's amazing. By the way, Portugal is one of my favorite places to go. Every chance I get, I would go to Portugal if I could.
It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, yeah. If you could go back, to your corporate days with what you know now, is there anything that you would tell your younger self or any kind of words of wisdom? I'm just curious.
Absolutely. The first one would be boundaries. I didn't have any. My younger self didn't have any. And that's why I ended up in 2014 being completely non-functional from burnout. I thought that I had to put in 12-hour days. I felt like I needed to prove myself. I felt like I needed, I knew that the work would never end. So I felt like I had to spend every waking moment doing it, which is stupid, right? Because it wasn't even for me. I wasn't even benefiting from this work. I just felt so responsible. And I felt like I had to solve all of my team's problems and I had to solve the company's problems and I just couldn't stop. I had no social life. I had no personal life and I had no boundaries. And the very first thing that I would tell myself is, it's one of those, when you get to 95 years old, what do you want to look back on your life and be proud of? And what don't you want to regret?
Yeah.
And there are definitely, I would have lived my life differently had I known then what I know now.
Yeah, there's a book or two on that subject as well, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
So I'd love to give the opportunity for you. Is there anything on your horizon, anything you'd like to share, workshop tools, research that you're excited about? And if the answer is no, that's fine, but I'd certainly like to have a platform for you to promote that.
Thank you. Not at the moment. I would love for people to reach out if they have any questions or if they're looking to take the next step in getting out of their own way or, becoming the leader that they know they can be, and figuring out how to redesign or realign aspects of life and work so that they can be that leader. I would love for them to reach out.
Love that. And they can do so by going to your website. Well, actually, let me take a step back. How can our listeners go and find out more about your books, your talks, your coaching?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So they can definitely go to my website. As you mentioned, it's rercoaching.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn. I am one of the few Rachel Radways in the world, and only one of us is a coach, I believe. And you can find my book, Perceptive, on Amazon, on bookshop.org, and on barnesandnoble.com, and also on my website.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you, Carl.
As well. So I want to try and weave something in, Rachel, that I skipped over, but I didn't feel it was the right time to insert it. So I want to open this up. So we have something called our special guest question round, right? So it's basically open mic. And this is where you answer a question left by our previous guest. And then you'll get to leave a question for our next mystery guest, because we're not going to tell you who the guest is. Okay. But the question that was asked of you, Miss Mystery, is people talk about work-life balance, right? It's for some it's a thing, and for others maybe not so much, right? I.e., nothing great is built on 40 hours a week, right? How do you feel about that statement and why?
I don't necessarily believe in the concept of work-life balance. What I believe in is work-life alignment. When my clients, for example, and when I are making decisions that are in alignment with our values and our goals, everything works out. So I would say, I think balance is a little bit of a myth. I think it's very hard to achieve, and balance is going to look different for every person too. Mm-hmm. I think alignment gives us a little bit more flexibility and lets us give ourselves a little bit more grace.
I love that, because I used to say work-life sacrifice, which I think is even worse than work-life balance, and certainly, work-life alignment. So I thank you for that. I'm going to start changing my approach and outlook. So what question would you like to pass along to our next guest?
Okay.
And I'll give you a little pause. This is the one gotcha question on my interview, on our podcast. Try not to do it, right? But here you go. And if the answer is you don't have one, you don't have one. But
I have to have one. I definitely have one. I would say, what is one thing that you can do now, or one step that you can take now to make any environment in your life more inclusive? Can be a workplace, can be a family kind of setting.
Okay, great. That is fantastic. Got that down so I don't forget. Rachel, thanks again. This has been great.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.